My goodness, what is going on with the teenagers in this country now, especially in certain cities? Wow, unbelievable. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tirade TV. Glad you can all be with me. If you like this type of content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. All comments are welcome as long as it's tasteful and respectful. And also, thanks to my podcast audience. And you know how I like to do it. So let's jump right into it. I saw this article here, which kind of reminds us why we should be very careful of who we let in this country. This article here goes on to read this. This is via Fox News. It says illegal immigrant who stabbed, shot NYPD officer sentenced to 3 years in prison, deportation. So let's take a look at what they have to say about this. It says a Bosnian citizen who assaulted several New York City police officers in 2020 has been sentenced in federal court to 30 years in prison. U.S. District Judge Rachel P. Kovner sentenced Dzenen Kamovich on Wednesday afternoon. Prosecutors argued he stabbed an NYPD officer in the neck, robbed them of the firearm, then used the weapon to fire on other officers. Wow. Kamovich was inspired by terrorism and repeatedly shouted Allahu Akbar during the attack. The Department of Justice said the migrant will be deported after completing his sentence. So this right here should let you know that, first of all, he wasn't legally supposed to be in this country. That by itself is an issue. Legally not supposed to be in this country. So we see it starting off by letting us know you see the dangers of letting illegal immigrants into the country and things they can do to not only just the average everyday citizen, but also law enforcement officers. Wow, it's crazy. Quote, today's 30-year sentence, along with Kamovich's removal from the United States, guarantees the community will be protected from his hate-filled ideology and actions, unquote, said Brian Peace, United States Attorney for Eastern District of New York. Quote, we will never stop working to protect the safety of our brave law enforcement officers and community from those who would do harm to them, unquote. Now, I hope that we keep that in mind and we remember that in New York, when there are certain groups out there, like your BLM or your Antifa or even KKK or whomever, certain groups who would try to do harm on law enforcement officers and on the community. I hope we remember that statement here. Goes on to say FBI Assistant Director in Charge, Michael J. Driscoll, said the sentence sends a message to anyone who intends to carry out a hate-based attack, especially on the men and women who serve in law enforcement. Okay, we'll see. You're saying that now, but we'll see. Quote, as today's sentence demonstrates, those who direct hate-fueled violence at anyone, including the brave men and women of law enforcement, will face stiff consequences in our criminal justice system. Wow. We're going to see, because there are certain, DAs and prosecutors right now who are letting people get off easy. So we'll see if this statement is true. It goes on to say, along with our partners on the Joint Terrorism Task Force, we remain steadfast in our determination to protect our city and our nation from terrorists and their violent extremist ideology, he said. And it's getting to the point now, things that were not considered extreme before are considered extreme now. So we have to be very careful if you have a particular interest or in supporting a particular or specific political party or specific candidate. You could be considered a terrorist or an extremist, have an extremist ideology. You know, right now, honestly, Christianity is starting to become an extremist ideology. So we'll see what happens in the future with that. Says in another statement, NYPD Commissioner Keechant Sewell said such an attack on men and women in uniform will never be tolerated. Quote, an attack against New York City police officers is an attack against our city and way of life. And today's sentencing of Dzienin Kamovich sends a clear message that such violence will never be tolerated, she said. Sewell added, our NYPD family is thankful for our brave officers survived this premeditated ambush. I recommend our NYPD investigate. I commend our NYPD investigators, our partners in the FBI's New York Joint Terrorism Task Force, and the prosecutors in the United States Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of New York for their work in this case. Together, we will never stop working to protect our city. That sounds good. That sounds fantastic. But here's the problem. The crimes that are taking place in New York now, and I know this is the so-called Eastern District of New York, but I'm saying things not only in New York, but in other cities too, they're getting out of hand right now. So let's just hope this is not just lip service. We'll see. Here's a tweet right here by the DA, Eric Gonzalez. We have zero tolerance for violence toward our law enforcement colleagues, and this long prison sentence holds this defendant accountable for his depraved and unconscionable crimes. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how much of this 30 years he actually serves. U.S. Attorney EDNY, Brooklyn man sentenced to 30 years in prison for jihadist-inspired attack on New York City Police Department officers. So that was the announcement that was made there. We'll see if they really stand by what they're saying, because there are so many people out there right now who are committing crimes, taking lives of people, just completely disrespecting law enforcement and the citizens that of the United States, this country, and they're getting off. They're not serving much time. So we'll see if this person, first of all, serves the whole 30 years, number one, and number two, to see if he's deported. And if he is deported, how long will it be before he's right back over here? That's the question. There have been so many people, illegal immigrants, that have been deported, and they end up right back over here committing more crimes. So we'll see how that works out. Also, another article that caught my attention here, and I hope you all are aware of, and for you all to be safe and be careful out there, is carjacking right now. Carjackings are really shooting up in this country. And what really caught my attention is not only this article here that says carjacking spike higher than 2020 levels in cities across the country. They considered the quote unquote perfect storm, right? But I would say this. It's not the fact that it's happening. It's the fact that who's doing it? Who's doing it? It goes on to say carjacking shot up in many cities in 2020, but some of those same cities continue to see an upward trend in the crimes this year. It's not getting better. Carjacking crimes erupted in cities across the country in 2020 as society was upended by coronavirus lockdowns and calls to defund the police echoed across the nation. 2 years later, some cities are seeing even more drastic surges in the crimes. So there's still many cities, many politicians that are saying defund the police. So obviously the common sense question would be, well, if you're going to defund the police, who's going to stop all these crimes? Who's going to enforce the law? Who's going to protect the citizens? And the one thing I always tell people is, yes, you definitely want to respect your law enforcement officers, your police officers, but don't depend on them to save you and protect you. They'll do the best they can. But if something's happening and it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes before the police officer can get there, then what do you do? Well, it's like you have to defend yourselves. It's your right to defend yourselves, defend your property, defend your family. So don't depend on, you know, the police officers to come and save you or come and stop a carjacking. Goes on to say, quote, police departments are absolutely decimated right now. They don't have the resources or the manpower, and they're essentially doing triage as it is with the increase in homicides and shootings. So not just carjackings, homicides and shootings, and some of those carjackings turn into homicides and shootings. Goes on to say you can bind uh, bind sort of all these things together, and you have this really perfect storm. Heritage Foundation legal fellow Amy Swearer told Fox Digital News, who noted progressive prosecutors in some cities are contributing to this quote unquote perfect storm. Yeah, it's a perfect storm for them, for progressive prosecutors who basically are letting people off because of another specific agenda, because they want to see every city just crumble. They want to see everything just as corrupt as they are. It's a perfect storm. People are going out being crazy, being lawless or committing lawless acts, and they're supposed to prosecute them. They're like, no, we're gonna let you go right now. We're gonna give you a stern talking to. We're gonna um, put you in the corner, maybe, and maybe we'll let you serve a few days behind bars, but then you'll be out in a little while and back to your old habits of carjacking or killing people. You know, um, it's sad right now because the people who are in position to do something about it, they're not doing anything about it. From the top level, our current administration that leads the country, all the way down to the local government. In most places, they're not doing anything about it. And look at this. It goes on to say, just to kind of skim through the article, that cities such as Philadelphia, Chicago, Washington D.C. I mean, even Detroit. I mean, they've skyrocketed in recent years. Carjackings have. It is and it has an upward trend, which means basically they don't see it getting any better anytime soon. Quote, what's happening here is not normal, and I don't want anyone for any minute to begin to normalize this, unquote. Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw warned in January of this year. So back in January, Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw says basically that she doesn't want people to begin to normalize this. Well, the way to stop people from normalizing this is to do something about it. You can't just sit here and give lip service. People who are out committing crimes, they need to be put behind bars. They're out there killing people and carjacking people and doing whatever, kidnapping people, raping people, doing whatever they can, whatever they want. So either you're going to do something about it or you're not. And that goes out to not just Philadelphia, but any city right now, any of the local government in any city. Either you're going to do something about it or you're not. Stop making excuses. Philadelphia kicked off the year by notching 91 carjackings by mid-January, putting it on track to outpace the 757 carjackings the city recorded in 2021, which was already at an 85% increase compared to the number of carjackings in 2020. 9 months into the year, the Philadelphia Police Department reports there have been 946 carjackings. Wow, 946 carjackings and attempts as of September 7th. And let me get to this other part here. Well, let's just read this real fast. It says, earlier this month, 3 teenagers in the city were accused of carjacking an 80-year-old man at gunpoint in broad daylight. Last month, a man was unloading his groceries when he was approached by an armed carjacker. Wow, man. It goes on to say, tells you how the victim turned the tables on the suspect and shoot them with his own gun. Hey, that's his right. That's his right. Over the past several years, Philadelphia has seen a disturbing spike in the number of violent crime incidents, including shootings, homicides, and carjackings. Unfortunately, these incidents have occurred throughout the country. Exactly. Not just Philadelphia, throughout the country. They hit the nail on the head with that. It says, and their occurrence is not unique to Philadelphia, unquote. Um, a Philadelphia police spokesperson told Fox News Digital when approached for comment on how carjackings have increased in the city. Wow. So keep your situation awareness up. Try best to stay prayerful and see things before they happen. And look at this. This is the part I would want to get to here. It says a disturbing trend of youths rather than adults carrying out the crimes has also left local leaders in cities disturbed. Just last month in Detroit, an 11-year-old was arrested for allegedly working with other youths to carry out carjackings. In Philadelphia earlier this year, a 12-year-old boy and two teenagers were arrested for allegedly beating an elderly man to death in 2021 during a carjacking. In Chicago, another 11-year-old boy was arrested in July for an attempted armed carjacking. These, like I said, when I was when I was 12, 13, whatever, I was doing some bad things, but there's always a limit, that I didn't go past. Just like most kids. Um, there's always a limit. There was always a level of respect we had for other people. Yeah, we would do some stupid stuff, but there's just a certain point we would not go past. And these teenagers now, not all of them, because there's I'm assuming there's still some good parenting and there's still some great teenagers out there, but a lot of teenagers now, they have no respect for authority. Uh, Not to mention, they're not stupid. They can see if so and so went, committed a crime and they were supposed to be prosecuted and they got off with a slap on the wrist. To them, that's telling them that, okay, if I go out and commit a crime, more than likely, I'm just going to get a slap on the wrist also. So let's put it this way. I would say that they're not dumb. They may do some stupid things, but they're not dumb. So I don't know. It's just opening the door like a floodgate of crime, and no one seems to care about it. From the top leadership in the United States all the way down to the local leadership, local government, no one seems to care. So it's almost like we have to take it. We have to protect ourselves. We have to legally protect ourselves. You know, we don't. You have to be the person that that does not promote violence, but at the same time know how to defend ourselves against violence. Anyways, what do y'all think about that? Let me know. Um, do any of you live in these cities? Philadelphia, Detroit, Washington, D.C. Um, I've even seen some things. I heard some things, I think, out of Houston area. The crime rate is up. Of course, L.A. Um, of course, Memphis, there's some things happening down there. So, and of course, New Orleans also. Lots of crime going on and no one's doing anything about it. Basically, someone said it best. A few people said it best. It's like a purge right now. That's really what they want. And don't give me the argument, no, they don't want that. It's not. Look, if they didn't want it, I'm talking about leadership, they would put a stop to it. Like I said, it's really, there are no gray areas here. Either you can or you can't. Either you will or you won't. Plain and simple. Anyways, let me know what you all think about this. You seeing any particular trends of crime in your cities? Let me know in the comments. And what are you doing to prepare for it or to protect yourself from it? And as I always say, we must be a praying people and a praying nation. See you.